754. That's how many homes were sitting for sale across the Woodstock area at the end of May 2026. The most for any May in more than a decade. And would you believe it if I told you that sales still jumped 15% over last year? More choice than buyers have had in years, and more of them are stepping in anyway. That tension is the whole story this month. It touches you, whether you already own a home, whether you are about to buy your first one in the area, whether you did what one of my viewers did and purchased something that hasn't even been built yet. He reached out and asked me a simple question. What is the Woodstock market actually doing? Let me show you. And thank you, Sridhar. Thank you for that question. In the next few minutes, we will walk through how much choice buyers really have, who holds the power in the area, and what the Bank of Canada just did, and why it matters less than what you might think, and what's actually fueling this city, what's happening underneath all of these numbers. We'll get into price as well, absolutely. So without further ado, let's jump right in and figure out what this market's doing in Woodstock and area. Let's start with what you can feel as a buyer, and that's choice. At the end of May, there were 754 homes for sale right across that real estate board. Okay, last May it was 721. This is the most homes Woodstock has had on the market in May in more than 10 years. Okay, for years, buyers here drove from London, from the GTA. I've moved clients from Cambridge and Waterloo region right to Woodstock, and they would have a handful of listings that actually fit their criteria, but not this spring. What that means for you, if you're curious to invest there, is that if you're buying, you finally can be choosy. You can see a home on Tuesday and not feel like it's gone by Wednesday. If you're selling, though, it does mean that your home is taking a little bit longer to sell, that you do have to put in all of the prep to stand out in this market, and your price matters more than everything. Your price and presentation have to go hand in hand. Now, here's a number that tells you who's in control, and it's going to be our months of inventory. If no new homes came to the market, how long would it take to sell everything already that's for sale at the current pace? That's what months of inventory is. A low number, it means the sellers are in control because homes get scooped up fast. The higher the number gets, it tilts the power towards the buyers because there's more sitting, there's more choice, there's more waiting. In the Woodstock area, that number is sitting at 3.9 months of inventory. A year ago, it was sitting at 4.3. So yes, it has tightened a little. Spring sales have climbed a little bit higher, and that's just giving you a little bit of context, okay? The long run, the norm for this market has been sitting at 2.4. Through the frenzy years, that number was under a month, which was heavy and leaning towards seller market territory. So while conditions have tightened, it is sitting then with the months of inventory is sitting higher than what's normal for the region, which means buyers, you have breathing room. Now let's quickly look at the pace. In May, 403 new listings came to the market and 192 homes sold. That's more than 2 new listings for every single sale. When listings are coming in twice as fast as homes are being absorbed or selling, time moves to the buyer side of the table. You can ask for conditions, get your inspection. You can walk away from the wrong house and know that another one is coming. Now, the question I get asked more than anything right now is, should I wait for the interest rates to drop? Are the interest rates going to drop? Should I wait? So here's where the Bank of Canada actually is. In June, so on June 10th, they held the policy rate at 2.25%. That is the 5th time in a row they have held. Inflation also ticked up to 2.8% in April, mostly on energy, conflict overseas that's pushing fuel costs around the world. So the bank is being cautious, rightly so, and is in no rush to cut. What that means for you is this: your leverage in Woodstock right now is not coming from cheaper money that was being handed out once upon a time. That may or may not arrive. It is coming from inventory and from time. From the fact that there are 754 homes for you to choose from in the area as a whole, and sellers sitting at the table are also aware of this. Okay, they know that there haven't been 5 consecutive rates from the Bank of Canada. So the thing you as a buyer have right now is choice. That's your leverage. If you're trying to figure out what this means for you, for your specific situation, that is the conversation that I love to have, which is what this viewer did in asking me this particular question. He just wanted to know what's happening in the Woodstock area at large. And when I said it was on a home that hasn't been built yet, because that's pre-construction. And I'm going to touch on that. 192 homes sold, and that's up 15% from last May. 754 active, 403 new listings, 3.9 months of inventory. You will notice I have not said the price yet. And that's because the Woodstock market is not really one market. It is a few different markets, and they're all just wearing the same postal code. The averages hide more than they tell, okay? So I'm gonna split them up for you. Let's start with single family homes, okay? That's the heart of Woodstock. Let's start with the benchmark, which is the price of a typical home rather than just an average. It sits at about 600,500. That is down 5.1% from a year ago. So yes, that is softer than last year, but this is still the segment that people move here for. And for a good detached home that is priced right, still draws real interest. Now, townhouses and, row homes, the benchmark there is about 376,000, and that is down 9.1% this year. And that is where prices have softened the most. And if you are a first-time buyer who kept getting outbid 2 years ago, this is your corner that finally gives you room to negotiate. It's here. And if we're going to talk about condos and apartments, I'm going to be honest with you. It's thin. It's a quiet segment. There's only a handful that even trade. So in a given month. And so I'm not really comfortable sharing those data points. The averages tend to bounce around. So I would hate to be misleading with any numbers that I give you. What I will say is that the apartment segment, the condo segment, it's actually pulling some of the benchmark averages down. I'd love to touch on pre-construction, just a nod to the buyer question. And maybe if there's one person asking, there's a few of you asking. So let me just touch on it. Okay. When you buy something that has not been built yet, you are pricing today for a home that closes later. So a few things are worth sitting with. The typical home is down around 5% from last year, and that's off of the highs of 2022, which means an appraisal at closing can land closer than the number you signed at. Okay, there's also a lot of new supply on the way in the city, and there's definitely more competition in the resale side of things, and that can change your timeline. None of this is a reason to panic. It is a reason to have a plan. So I'm going to say your first line of defense is calling your mortgage broker and talking through what these numbers look like well before your closing date, because that's what's going to give you a sense of security. What actually fuels the Woodstock market? Like what exactly is holding these numbers up in Woodstock? So Woodstock runs on real jobs. So Toyota's operations there, and nearby in Cambridge, they employ more than 8,500 people, and they just started building the all-new RAV4 in January, and this year they brought battery productions in-house. And so it looks like they're anchoring in, getting deeper. The company's kind of digging in, which is all a good sign for that immediate economy. However, I'm not going to pretend that, just down the road, GM didn't just cut down and go through cuts, whether it's deliveries, and they hit around 1,200 workers, I think. So both of those things are true in the area about this region, and they're both true at once. While there's a deep commitment of an anchor employer, it's also a real reminder that the same industry can have other shifts. And underneath all of it, people are choosing Woodstock, and in fact, the city has grown to around 57,000, and that's up sharply from the last census at roughly 3% a year. Okay, there is a brand new Woodstock General Hospital as well. That's more than double the size of the old one. And there's a large new community of 600 plus homes in the planning stages north of the city. And in August, Southside Park fills up for Cowapalooza. Saying it's funny, but that's just like the small town feels, and that's what people move there for. I'm only laughing because I really want to attend it this year. Look, if retirement plans are calling to you and Woodstock makes sense for you and it's cheaper and you can stretch your dollar that much further and it maybe offers you a lifestyle, and as long as you find belonging, why not? It's a good consideration. And here's how I see it. This is a market that has just shifted quietly. Okay. A lot of sellers maybe haven't caught up to it yet. Maybe that's why that inventory is sitting a little bit longer. But a buyer who's looking at, when you have the filter on your MLS and there's the area and it's showing, oh my gosh, the whole region is holding about 754 active listings right now. That is a large amount of listings. And that sends bells off for the buyers saying, hey, there's opportunity here, but also that creates a little bit of a lag because there's a lot of fear in the marketplace. And then it'll come down to, what does price look like? Just to give you a sense, back in 2020, the average home in this area sold for about $521,000. As of this May, the average is at $611,000. Okay, so roughly in 5 years, the prices are up about 17%. Woodstock did not give back its gains. It gave back the frenzy. Year over year, that average price is actually up 2.9%. It's up. You would look at that and think, oh, the market is heating up again. But the benchmark, the typical home, is actually down 5.1% in that same year. Townhouses are down actually more than 9%. So both of these things are true at the same time. And here is why. Sales jumped 15% and the total dollars spent jumped more than 18%, because more of what sold this spring were the higher price detached homes, and that sort of richer mix pulls the average up. Right, well, the typical home is worth a little less than it was a year ago. I'm just giving you some context, and because that's the difference between what an average shows you, which is, here's what happened, here's how sales happened, and the benchmark, which actually tracks the same kind of home over time. So when someone tells you Woodstock prices are up, I'm going to encourage you to ask them which number they are looking at. And in fact, I think that's important for any market you're looking at. And what does this mean for you? Well, depending on where you are standing, where you're looking, what your future plans are. If you're selling, you're going to have more patience. I say this often for sellers today. I empathize with you. I know it's tough to get your head sort of accepting this perceived loss that you feel because you saw prices on your street reach levels you never thought possible. However, how important is it for you to move on with your life? Okay, sellers, maybe have that question in the back of your mind when you're looking at pricing and presenting your home. And for buyers, make your move. I'm not going to recap the numbers. You can rewind the video for that. I want to leave you with the question I actually care about, because a home was never about the spreadsheet. And I see a lot of clients, we all talk spreadsheets. Okay. Does where you live still fit who you're becoming? That is the question underneath the buying and the selling and the waiting. Your environment shapes who you are becoming, and Woodstock for a lot of people is the place that finally fits. If you're considering buying, I'm so curious to know, is there something holding you back? What's on your mind? Would you share it with me, please? I read every comment and I look forward to connecting with you. I'll see you on the next video.